They gave me the shiny award with one hand and slid the termination letter into my other. That moment, under bright stage lights and fake applause, didn't just happen. It was planned, perfect, and if I had paid attention sooner, I might have seen it coming. But betrayal rarely shouts, it whispers. 3 weeks earlier, I was alone in the hallway outside the big meeting room. I got there 10 minutes early and decided to wait. I didn't mean to hear anything. I didn't want to, but the door wasn't fully shut. Inside, I knew the voices right away. Mr. Stone, our smooth-talking boss, and Miss Fields, our new head of people. Miss Fields used to be a friend, or so I thought, years ago. I had helped her go from a middle-level recruiter to a trusted voice in upper management. I taught her how to understand important meetings, how to lead with facts and gut feelings. Now, her voice was low, careful. She thinks just because she closed the big deal with Oceanic Corp, she can change how this company works. Mr. Stone's laugh followed, sharp like broken glass. She's great at getting things done, but leaders make people feel safe. Alice makes people nervous. Miss Fields added, "We have a company name to protect. We can't build it around someone like her." Silence. Then, "We'll give her the award. Let her have her night, and then we move forward cleanly." I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stood there, frozen outside the door like a ghost haunting her own house. At that moment, something changed. I had always known office politics were real. I just never thought they would be aimed so directly at me, right behind my back. Inside that room, they were cutting me out of the story I had written. Back at my desk, I looked out the tall windows of Bright Solutions' 33rd floor. The city looked small from here, easy to handle, contained, like it could fit into my hand. I had given 11 years to this company. I had watched it grow and shrink and almost disappear. And when it mattered most, I had built the system that brought it back to life. The deal with Oceanic Corp wasn't luck. It was smart planning, hard work, and sleepless nights. But none of that seemed to matter to them. I didn't cry. I didn't storm into that room. I sat still. And in that stillness, a quiet understanding came over me. They were going to push me out. And if that was their plan, I needed a better one. Hope is a tricky thing in corporate life. It doesn't shout. It hums, quietly, steadily, under the hum of office lights and calendar reminders. After what I heard outside that meeting room, I should have packed up and left, but I didn't. Because the very next day, Oceanic Corp called. "We're in," the voice on the other end said. It was Lena Chen, their chief of new ideas. "We've looked at your plan. 800 million over 5 years, energy analysis, modernizing systems, tracking carbon, the whole package." My heart skipped. She continued, "But there's one condition. You lead it, Alice, personally." I froze. "You mean oversee the team?" "No, we want you. The deal depends on your leadership. If you're not in charge, we're not signing." It wasn't just a win. It was proof. Everything I had put into that system, the late nights rewriting its core, the client research, the on-site tests, had been recognized, not by my own company, but by a big client with more power than any internal title could ever give me. When I told Mr. Stone and Miss Fields the news in the executive update, I expected at least some quiet celebration. A nod, a clap, a handshake. Instead, Mr. Stone just blinked slowly and said, "That's unexpected." Miss Fields added, "It's not common for clients to tell us who manages our projects." "No," I said, my voice steady, "but this isn't a common deal. This saves us. This rebuilds our place in the market overnight." They both looked at the folder in my hands like it might explode. "I'll need full access to the project flow and a dedicated tech team," I continued. "We're going to put it in place in steps, but the system needs to be ready to grow from day one. Oceanic expects quarterly updates, and we're not going to let them down." Mr. Stone nodded faintly. "We'll get the lawyers to write it up. Congrats." But as I left the room, I could feel it again, that hum. Not of hope this time, but of something colder, quieter, like ice forming just under the surface. Still, I kept going. I met with Oceanic's integration leaders the next morning. We matched up our tech, wrote down how to put things in place, and planned a timeline. Every part fit together. Every detail proved the same truth. I had done it. I had brought us back from the brink. Bright Solutions had been weeks from cutting whole departments. Now we were talking about growth, hiring again, expanding. The internal team, especially the engineers, was excited. Emails came in with subject lines like, "Let's build something that lasts." And finally, a real project. People were energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. For a moment, I forgot the behind the door. I forgot how Miss Fields had avoided eye contact during my presentation. I forgot how Mr. Stone had missed the last progress review. I thought this win would change things. But some people don't celebrate your success. They see it as a threat. They don't lean in. They lean away. And in that silence, beneath the surface of hope, something was still changing. Hope only lasts so long before instinct takes over. After 11 years in corporate innovation, you learn the signs: changes in tone, casual comments in meetings, being left out of emails. Most people ignore them until it's too late. I don't ignore signs. So, the moment Oceanic Corp confirmed the $800 million contract with me as their non-negotiable project leader, I stopped celebrating and started building. Not out of fear, but because I recognized a pattern. I knew Mr. Stone and Miss Fields wouldn't let it stand. I just didn't know when they would make their move. So I made mine first. It began with an old laptop, not from the company, not traceable, one I kept from my freelance days, stored in a sealed case inside a file cabinet labeled Old Records. I hadn't used it in years, but when it turned on and the screen lit up, I knew I still had time. The machine was clean. No Bright Solutions programs, no IT tracking tools. I sent its internet through a private connection I had kept up for years. I encrypted everything with a double-layered key and got to work. I wasn't copying the system I built for Bright Solutions. I was making it new. Everything they claimed as theirs had been made using their internal tools and methods. This version used only my own code, personal files, and open source programs with clear, independent licenses. Nothing touched the Bright Solutions system. Every late-night idea I had kept in my private folder, every discarded test, every diagram I wasn't allowed to submit because it was too advanced, I brought it all together into what would become the clean, private base for my alternative system. I named it Project Shield. In old stories, a shield is for protection, not attack, and that's exactly what this was. Protection, not aggression. It wasn't made to attack Bright Solutions. It was built to protect me from them. Shield wasn't just a copy of the analysis engine. It was smarter, faster, and hidden deep inside was something more: a silent audit system. Every file opened, every unauthorized login attempt, every download done by someone outside the project team, Shield would record it. Time, place, username, and purpose tags based on file type and behavior. By the end of the first week, I had 14 entries. By the second, 47, most of them from Miss Fields. At first, she only looked at progress reports. Then she started downloading raw usage data and performance charts I hadn't sent to her. They were getting ready for something. I didn't know what, but Shield was watching. Meanwhile, I kept the Bright Solutions version running, steady, expected, clean. On the surface, everything looked the same. The client dashboard, internal analysis, weekly deliveries, all smooth. But below the surface, a difference. A quiet, planned separation. A system built not to last for them, but to change for me. I rewrote the user management rules in my version. Admin rights couldn't be moved without a fingerprint scan. I added a remote shutoff trigger that could wipe Bright Solutions copy if someone tried to mess with it. And I added a core logic link that no one would notice until they tried to run it without me. Control isn't just having power, it's getting ready for when someone tries to take it. So I kept working in silence. During meetings, I took notes. I smiled at Mr. Stone's fake compliments. I let Miss Fields offer project management ideas she knew I would never use. They thought I was playing the loyal engineer. But the truth was, they were walking on glass floors I had designed, and when they cracked, I would already be standing on solid ground. It happened in a room I used to own. The 10th floor strategy meeting room had once been my stage. I would walk in front of that glass board, pitching machine learning models, planning system rollouts, and defending budgets that didn't exist yet, but that I made real. Now, I sat in the far corner, 3 chairs down from the whiteboard, behind 2 layers of vice presidents who didn't know what I did, but who suddenly had many opinions about it. Mr. Stone called it a high-level vision session. He said it was about planning Bright Solutions' future after the Oceanic deal. He said he wanted collaboration across departments, a phrase he always used when he didn't want anyone to argue, just polite nods. I shouldn't have been surprised when he didn't invite me to the dinner the night before, or when I found out there was a presentation I hadn't seen until I sat down that morning. Still, I believed, foolishly maybe, that what I had built would speak louder than my absence in the email chain. I was wrong. The meeting began with predictions. Income up 38% quarter over quarter. Mr. Stone praised the whole team's effort in getting Oceanic. Even though the client had clearly named me and their contract as the reason they signed, Miss Fields, sitting to his right, gave a quick smile. She hadn't looked me in the eye since the award ceremony invitation went out. They clicked through points about system growth, after-contract integration, and hiring goals. I waited for the slide with my framework. I waited to be asked to speak. Instead, Mr. Stone turned to a chart that completely misrepresented the rollout timeline. This assumes we're ready by the second quarter, which may need a changed schedule, he said. We'll need faster cycles, possibly more engineering help. I raised my hand slightly. Actually, the current model already takes that into account. The load balancing part in the system allows for. Mr. Stone held up a finger. Just a sec. I froze. He turned to the man sitting 2 seats down, someone from finance who hadn't touched a line of code in his life. John, your team ran those budget analyses, right? Yeah, John replied. We assumed engineering would handle most of the technical debt. I tried again. With respect, the engineering model was built as a tool for putting things in place, not a driver of strategy. That's why Oceanic insisted on solution oversight. Miss Fields cut in smoothly, smiling at the group. That's true. Alice's engineering background gives her a strong practical grip, and we're all thankful for that. But this meeting is more about big-picture vision, company image, long-term leadership. Engineering background. She said it like it was a weakness, like I was just a wrench in the toolbox. Useful, but not right for the boardroom. Like I hadn't just designed the very thing that saved their quarterly earnings. No one blinked. No one spoke. The conversation moved on. For the rest of the hour, I didn't say a word. I sat, took notes, nodded when appropriate, but inside, something broke. It wasn't just the words. It was the way the room changed when I spoke, like it pulled back slightly, like my presence had become inconvenient. Not because I had failed, but because I had succeeded too much. Success had made me a problem. After the meeting, Miss Fields caught up with me by the elevator, her voice sweet as ever. You know, Mr. Stone is just trying to handle the politics with the board. Don't take it personally. I didn't answer, because the truth was, it was personal. It always had been. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This was a planned removal, a slow public pushing out, a reminder that no matter how valuable I was to the company, I wasn't leadership material in their eyes. I had stepped out of place by being necessary. And now, they were putting me back where they thought I belonged. The glass ceiling wasn't just a saying in that moment. It was a shiny, clear surface I could see through, watching them all move above me. And the worst part? They wanted me to stay silent and grateful for the view. The office cafe used to be my safe place. It wasn't much, just a small corner with cracked tiles and busy baristas, but it had a certain rhythm, one I had come to rely on. My morning always started there, not because of the coffee itself, but because of who I met there almost every day, at 8:20 in the morning, Ben Carter. Ben had been my closest friend for years. We started at Bright Solutions only weeks apart, back when the company was still small, eager, and full of ideas. While I built systems, he built connections between products, sales, and people. He understood my silences and filled them with meaning. I covered for him when he was on paternity leave. He stayed up with me on chat when I was rewriting back-end logic from scratch the night before a deadline. We always said, no matter how bad it gets, we meet for coffee. But that morning, the seat across from me stayed empty. I texted him the night before, after the strategy meeting where I had been dismissed like a footnote in my own project. Coffee? Need 10 minutes. Tomorrow morning at 8:20, same place. He didn't respond. Unusual, but I understood. He had a lot on his plate. I got to the cafe early anyway. I ordered his drink, half-calf vanilla latte with almond milk, no foam. It sat on the table, growing colder by the minute. At 8:40, I texted again. Are you running late? Nothing. At 8:50, I called, straight to voicemail. By 9:10, the drink had started to make the cardboard sleeve wet. So had I. I stood, tossed both cups in the trash, and tried to tell myself he must have been pulled into something urgent. Maybe a sudden meeting, maybe something unavoidable. But deep down, I already knew. The text came later that day. I'm sorry, Alice. I just can't be seen taking sides right now. Things are changing. You understand. No, I did. Or maybe I did, and that was worse. Ben wasn't just choosing silence. He was choosing safety, agreement, the easiest path. He was choosing them, even if he couldn't say it out loud. That night, I sat in my car in the office garage long after the building had gone dark. I stared at the exit sign, glowing dimly in the rearview mirror. A symbol, maybe, a message, but I didn't move. I thought about all the rooms I had helped shape, the dashboards I designed, the team structures I had fought for, the new hires I guided through self-doubt and burnout, the Friday pizza nights I organized when no one had money, but we needed morale. This company had been my plan. But now, I felt like a ghost walking through a house that remembered me differently than I remembered it. Even the small things had changed. The last 3 one-on-one meetings I scheduled had been moved due to lack of time. The client meetings with Oceanic had been reassigned for transparency. And the last company-wide newsletter, the one that listed internal awards, my name wasn't there. But Miss Fields was, along with a congratulatory note for collaborative leadership during platform expansion. Collaborative. The word tasted bitter. That week, I realized I wasn't just being pushed aside, I was being erased, quietly, efficiently, as if someone was running a cleanup program in the background of a machine I had built. And the worst part? People I trusted were watching it happen and doing nothing. Ben's absence hit harder than any formal memo or policy change. It was personal. It was proof that even the strongest connections can be broken by fear. I walked back into the office the next day and passed him in the hallway. He nodded. I nodded back. Neither of us said a word. That's when I understood. I was no longer one of them. I was on my own. And from that moment forward, I started acting like it. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it lands silently, neatly formatted, and politely worded at the bottom of your inbox. It was a Tuesday afternoon, quiet except for the faint hum of office lights and the steady tapping of keys around me. I had just finished a technical review with Oceanic's data science team. Their VP had ended the call with, "We're in good hands, Alice. Honestly, you've set a new standard for all our partners." I smiled, muted the call, and leaned back for a breath I thought I had earned. That's when I saw it. Subject line, final agreement plus transition plan. Attachment, Smith Offboarding 2025.pdf. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I hadn't given any resignation papers. I wasn't helping anyone leave, and it came to my personal inbox, not the company address. Still, curiosity pushed me. I clicked. The document opened with cold precision. It was a termination packet, addressed to me, signed, final, stamped with a date, 4 days before the company's award ceremony, the same one where I had stood on stage holding a trophy, smiling like I had a future here. The first line read, "Thank you for your contributions. Bright Solutions has decided to move in a new direction." My pulse slowed, not quickened, slowed like my body didn't want to believe what it was seeing. I scrolled. A standard clause about not speaking badly about the company, a handover checklist, a polite suggestion that I remain cooperative and helpful during the transition, severance offer, 2 months' pay. Nothing special, nothing personal, except for one thing. Drafted by Vivian Fields, reviewed and approved by Mr. Robert Stone. My hand tightened around the mouse. A quiet heat flushed up my neck. Miss Fields. She wasn't just involved, she wrote it. I stared at her name in that footer for a long time, like I could burn it off the page just by looking. This wasn't an end-of-quarter adjustment or a legal formality. This had been planned, carried out, and hidden. And while I had been building the most important system of my career, while I had been saving their company, they had already processed my exit. Worse, they dressed it up with an award and applause, like that would soften the blow. I walked out of my office and went to HR, not to confront anyone, at least not yet. I needed clarity. I needed to know if this was official or some administrative error. A voice called after me, "Alice." I turned. It was Clara, a junior HR assistant. She looked pale, shaken. She held a folder in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "I'm so sorry," she blurted. "I was uploading the third quarter offboarding packages to the archive, and I think I emailed yours by mistake. I didn't realize it hadn't gone out officially." My heart thumped once. Quiet. Final. "So, it's real?" She winced. "It was supposed to be confidential. Miss Fields asked me to keep it internal until after the rollout plan. I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I said, though nothing felt fine. "Thank you for being honest." Clara looked like she might cry, but I didn't comfort her. Not because I was angry at her, but because I couldn't afford to waste my strength on someone else's guilt. I walked slowly back to my office, closed the door, sat down, and reopened the file. Every line screamed quiet betrayal, not rage, not dramatic declarations, just erasure, sealed in legal language and company tone. And they thought I would accept it. They thought I would smile and nod and leave gracefully while they kept the credit, while they repackaged my work, while they slid my name off every document and replaced it with someone safer. Miss Fields had shaken my hand the night I got the award, told me I was an inspiration to future leadership, and yet she had signed my exit before that handshake ever happened. I didn't scream, I didn't throw anything, but a part of me went very, very still. Because this wasn't just betrayal, it was strategy, and if they were going to play it like a game, then I would play too. Only I wouldn't be following their rules, I would be rewriting them. I didn't call them out of anger. I called them because the numbers made sense. The morning after, I read my own termination agreement. The world outside my window looked unchanged. Same city view, same schedule, same polished hallway outside my office, where people still smiled and nodded as they passed, like they didn't know I had already been cut from the cast. But something inside me had shifted. There's a kind of calm that comes over you when the fight has already begun, and you realize no one is coming to save you. That's when you stop pleading, you start preparing. I opened a spreadsheet, pulled up the data I had saved. Client growth paths, contract renewal patterns, trust measures. The system I had built wasn't just a product. It was a bridge between clients and performance, between numbers and gut feelings. And it wasn't tied to bright solutions unless I let it be. So I looked for the company that wouldn't just use what I had built, but understand it. The name had come up once in a late-night conversation 2 years earlier, back when Bright Solutions was about to lose a mid-sized clean energy client named GreenTech. We let them go, said they weren't big enough. Mr. Stone called them a distraction. GreenTech left 6 months later. Their chief tech officer co-founded a small strategy firm in New York. They called it Innovate Labs. At the time, no one paid attention. Too small, too quiet. Now, they were being mentioned on important lists, in industry newsletters, for medium-sized government contracts, the kind of firm that grew while no one was watching and suddenly became a competitor. I opened their website. Clean, sharp, built on strong beliefs. Their leadership page caught my eye. Sarah Lewis, former CTO of GreenTech, the same one Mr. Stone once called a mid-level operator with an inflated ego. Apparently, her ego had built a 22-person consulting firm with clients in 3 countries. I stared at her face for a moment, familiar, distant, unexpectedly thoughtful. Then I clicked contact. I didn't go through their form. I bypassed the general email and called the direct line listed at the bottom of the press section. I wasn't in the mood to wait. 3 rings, then Sarah speaking. Her voice was exactly as I remembered, measured, professional, with an undercurrent of "don't waste my time." "It's Alice Miller," I said. A pause. Well, that's a name I didn't expect to hear again. I'm not calling as Bright Solutions, I said. I'm calling for something else. I have a framework I built, one they're using, but they won't own it for long. It's modular, clean, fully compliant, and it's yours if you're ready. Silence again. I take it things have changed? You could say that, I said. Let's just say I'm no longer interested in protecting people who write my termination before they finish using my work. I heard about the Oceanic deal, she said. Nice job. Thank you. That system, I rebuilt it, took out every internal link. What I have now is smarter, smaller, ready to use tomorrow. She didn't say no. She didn't say yes. She said, send me a non-binding overview and a 20-minute roadmap presentation tomorrow noon. If it's real, I'll get my team in a room. I nodded, like she could see me. You'll have it by 10. I hung up. No rush, no excitement, just the quiet click of a gear falling into place. I didn't walk around or punch the air. I didn't scream. Instead, I turned back to my laptop. I reopened the Shield architecture, added new setup rules, adjusted load balancing specs to fit smaller teams. Then I opened a new folder, Innovate Labs Transition V1. For the rest of the day, I worked not for Bright Solutions, not for revenge, but for the version of me who refused to be defined by who gave her a badge and who took it away. Miss Fields and Mr. Stone thought they were writing my end. They didn't realize I was already writing my next beginning. There's a reason I always wrote my own contracts, at least the first drafts. It started as a habit, a leftover from years of working as a freelancer before I joined Bright Solutions. Back then, I learned quickly that words were power and small print was armor. The people who didn't read line by line, they were the ones who got run over, forgotten, replaced. So when it came time to finalize the Oceanic deal, I insisted on reviewing the full legal language myself, every clause, every subpoint, every footnote. Mr. Stone had rolled his eyes and dismissed it like it was micromanaging. Miss Fields, who had brought in the legal team, said, we'll let the lawyers handle the details. But I didn't trust their lawyers, not when my name and my work were on the line. And deep down, I already knew what they were planning. I had read between the lines of their compliments. I had seen the quiet nods of exclusion. They didn't see me as a leader. They saw me as a tool, useful only until the job was done. That's why I wrote Clause 17B. On the surface, it looked normal. Licensing of software and systems herein referred to as Miller Platform shall remain conditional upon continued oversight by the architect or their designated successor and is limited to operational deployment rights within the Oceanic Bright Solutions contract term. It sounded boring, legal, harmless, but it wasn't. Buried in that clause was a firewall, a gate only I could open. Bright Solutions hadn't bought my system. They had rented it. They didn't own the underlying structure. They were leasing access. That meant if they ended my employment without honoring the deployment terms, they would lose the license, and Oceanic could walk away without penalty. I had written it in neutral technical language. The legal team had quickly read it, filed it under Standard Framework IP. No one blinked. Why would they? No one expected the product to become the person, and that was their mistake. They thought I was just the engineer, the builder, replaceable. But the very foundation of the deal, its structure, security, and logic, ran through decisions only I could explain. That wasn't ego, it was fact, and I made sure the contract reflected that truth, even if they didn't see it. After my call with Sarah from Innovate Labs, I reopened the contract and reread Clause 17B for the 100th time. It held clean, solid. Not even Mr. Stone's tricks or Miss Fields' rewrites could erase it without causing a breach. And I knew eventually they would try. I imagined the moment clearly, the boardroom scramble, the legal team digging through documents after Oceanic expressed concern, the dawning horror on Mr. Stone's face when someone finally pointed to the clause and realized what it meant. It would be too late by then. That's the thing about power. The real kind doesn't scream. It whispers, waits, buries itself in the lines no one reads until it's already decided everything. But power needs patience and timing, so I didn't act immediately. I didn't show off the clause or wave it like a flag. Instead, I filed it in a folder labeled Compliance, Shared Contracts, Reviewed. I gave them everything they needed to succeed and just enough rope to hang themselves when they tried to take credit for what they didn't understand. Then I did one more thing. I sent an email, not to Mr. Stone, not to Miss Fields, but to Lena Chen, Oceanics CIO. Subject line, follow-up, re-oversight, and continuity. Hi, Lena. As we move into implementation, just a brief note to reaffirm that deployment is proceeding under the licensing terms outlined in 17B. As discussed, continuity of architectural oversight remains integral to system stability. Please don't hesitate to reach out if legal has any questions. Warm regards, Alice. I didn't blind carbon copy anyone. I didn't flag it as urgent. I let it sit quiet and official in her inbox, a time-stamped reminder of what we had agreed to and what Bright Solutions was now gambling against. Within 2 hours, Lena replied, "Thanks for the confirmation, Alice. We're fully aligned. Please keep us informed of any shifts on your end. We're excited to move forward, especially with your continued leadership." I stared at that last sentence for a long moment. Continued leadership. They wanted me, not just the system, not just the data. And because of that clause, they had every right to walk if I wasn't involved. Miss Fields and Mr. Stone hadn't read that far. Or maybe they had, but assumed the words were just pretty decorations, soft guidelines that could be ignored or waved away later. They were wrong. What they thought was decoration was design. And while they plotted behind closed doors, while they polished speeches and planned exits, I had already laid the trap. Now, all I had to do was wait for them to step on it. There's a strange kind of peace that settles in the hours before everything burns. Not panic, not fear, something quieter, measured, as if your body already knows what's coming and has made its peace long before your mind catches up. That's what I felt the night before the spotlight, the calm before the planned storm. The company was buzzing with excitement. Tomorrow was the shareholder ceremony. Oceanic executives would be present. Mr. Stone had prepared a speech. Miss Fields was arranging photo opportunities. The whole thing had been called a celebration of innovation and partnership. They thought I didn't know what was coming, that I hadn't noticed the termination draft, the shift in room temperature during meetings, the fading mentions of my name in internal announcements. They assumed I was still clinging to hope, too grateful, too invested to fight back. But what they didn't know was that I had already finished my last true task for Bright Solutions 2 nights earlier. I had spent the evening alone in my apartment, lights low, music soft, a smooth jazz tune humming like smoke in the background. On my laptop, lines of code shimmered in terminal windows like constellations. Project Shield. Clean, stable, final. I reviewed the architecture one last time, ran the system checks, triple-checked the server root protocols. The mirrored environment had been live for 3 weeks now, storing every update, every deployment, every line of logic I had written under Bright Solutions' nose. What they thought was the full system was a shell, a mirrored endpoint built to reflect back only what I allowed. And tonight, I would finish the transfer. I sat quietly and launched the terminal script. The command was simple, shieldsync.sh. The screen lit up with a cascading stream of green. Syncing node, 100%. Migrating analytics layer, complete. Extracting core modules, complete. Disconnecting redundant hooks, success. Local instance override engaged. Deploying message, I was never yours. It blinked once, then disappeared. And just like that, Bright Solutions' system was hollow. They wouldn't know, not yet. The shell would still work for a while, accepting questions, generating dashboards, returning pre-programmed outputs, but without the core logic modules and live feedback layer, it would rot from the inside out within days. Oceanic's data science team would notice the inconsistencies first, then their legal team, then their board. By the time they connected the dots, I would be somewhere else entirely. I powered down my machine, sat back, and closed my eyes. There was no triumph in the moment, no rage, just stillness, the kind you feel when you've finished something irreversible. I thought I would feel heavier, but instead I felt light, as if I had been carrying a weight I hadn't noticed until it was finally set down. In the quiet, I thought about what had led me here. Not just Mr. Stone or Miss Fields, not just the politics or the betrayal, But the way the system treated builders like me, people who solve problems, who create new things, who build as tools, not minds, as a means to an end, never as the end itself. I had been the architect of $1 billion turnaround, and still they couldn't say my name in the same breath as leadership. So now I would give them exactly what they wanted, a future without me. Only they didn't realize that future would arrive hollow, silent, and ready to collapse. At 11:04 in the evening, I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and looked out over the city. The skyline blinked with life, a circuit board of windows and motion. Somewhere in that city, Sarah Lewis was reading my integration roadmap, already lining up infrastructure. Lena from Oceanic would soon notice the subtle delay in Bright Solutions' system and wonder why. And in a few short days, it would all unravel with perfect precision. The storm was already coming, and I was calm, because unlike them, I wasn't afraid of starting over. I had done it before. I would do it again. But this time, I wouldn't be building something for someone else. This time, the system would be mine. From the outside, it looked like triumph. The ballroom at the Grand Hotel in the city center had been transformed for the occasion. Blue and silver banners hung from the ceiling, uplights bounced off crystal centerpieces, glasses of champagne lined white linen tables. A sleek screen above the stage rotated through buzzwords: innovation, vision, leadership. Somewhere near the front, I could hear the host practicing his lines over the mic. Spearheaded one of the most successful enterprise partnerships in Bright Solutions history. And me? I stood backstage, a small wireless mic already clipped to my collar, hands clasped loosely in front of me, expression calm, polished, like every other executive being honored tonight. But I knew better, and so did Miss Fields. She appeared beside me like a shadow, holding a slim ivory envelope in both hands, sealed, unmarked. Her lipstick was perfect, her smile practiced. "For after the speech," she said softly, slipping the envelope into my palm like it was nothing more than a thank you card. "We wanted to make sure you had clarity moving forward." Clarity. That word stung more than any insult she could have spoken aloud. I didn't open the envelope. I didn't need to. I knew what it was. I had already seen the termination agreement days ago, accidentally leaked by Clara. I had read every cold line, signed by Miss Fields herself, dated days before this celebration was even announced. This ceremony wasn't a send-off. It was a burial wrapped in lights and applause. "Alice Miller," the announcer boomed through the sound system, voice cheerful, "the architect behind the Oceanic deal and the driving force behind our future." Applause rose like a wave, loud and immediate. I stepped onto the stage with the envelope still tucked in my hand. Blinding lights hit my face. Cameras flashed. Executives clapped from their tables. Mr. Stone stood near the edge of the stage, clapping a beat too slowly, eyes unreadable. I walked to the center of the stage and took the crystal award from the host, engraved with my name etched beneath the words "Excellence in Innovation." I held it up, smiled. The room roared, and inside I boiled, because I had already transferred the system, already rewritten the code, already rerouted the architecture to servers they didn't even know existed. Their applause wasn't for me. It was for the ghost of me, the version they thought they could keep. The host leaned toward me, whispers, "Quick speech." I nodded. "Thank you," I began. "Thank you for this recognition, for the opportunity to do work that matters. When we started the Oceanic negotiations, many believed it was a long shot, but we saw something bigger. We saw potential under the surface, behind the noise." I scanned the room as I spoke, voice clear, steady, and I'm proud to say we didn't just close a deal, we built a future, one rooted in accountability, resilience, and clarity. I glanced briefly at Miss Fields. Her expression didn't flicker. I continued. "Innovation isn't just invention, it's foresight. It's knowing when to push forward and when to let go." I let the last sentence hang, then gave a subtle smile and stepped away from the mic. The applause returned, thunderous and hollow all at once. Backstage, I didn't wait for congratulations. I walked through the corridor lined with floral arrangements and company signs. Miss Fields caught up with me by the service elevator, her voice still syrupy. You handled that beautifully. I know, I said flatly. She looked down at the envelope still in my hand. I trust everything's clear now. Crystal, I replied, holding up the award in my other hand. She didn't laugh, and neither did I. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and finally opened the envelope. As expected, termination paperwork, effective immediately. A carefully written story about restructuring and evolving business needs. It ended with a request to sign and return by Friday. I set the envelope on the passenger seat and drove in silence. That night, I placed the award on the kitchen counter. It caught the light in soft angles. Beautiful, empty, like everything they had promised. I opened my laptop, logged into the Shield interface, and checked the logs. No unauthorized access, no alerts, no issues. They still didn't know. They wouldn't until it was too late. They celebrated me publicly because they didn't have the courage to confront me privately. They honored me with one hand while cutting me off with the other, but I had accepted their award with a smile. I had delivered the speech they wanted. I had worn the mask to the very end, and tomorrow they would wake up to a system that no longer belonged to them, because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks off the stage holding a trophy and leaves the trap behind. Destruction, when designed well, doesn't start with noise. It starts with a breach. That morning, I wasn't at Bright Solutions. I was seated by a window at a cafe 5 blocks from the office, hood up, headphones in, hands wrapped around a warm ceramic mug. On my screen was the Shield dashboard, quietly pulsing green. Everything looked calm. And then at 10:07 in the morning, it began. Trigger detected. Protocol echelon initialized. They had finally tried it. The breach came from Bright Solutions' main data server. Someone had tried to copy the analytics framework, my framework, likely under pressure from investors. Someone in leadership gave the green light to bypass me entirely. They were going to copy the system, rename it, and erase my mark. But they didn't know what I had left behind. Destruction, when designed well, doesn't start with noise. It starts with a breach. That morning, I wasn't at Bright Solutions. I was seated by a window at a cafe 5 blocks from the office, hood up, headphones in, hands wrapped around a warm ceramic mug. On my screen was the Shield dashboard, quietly pulsing green. Everything looked calm. And then, at 10:07 in the morning, it began. Trigger detected. Protocol echelon initialized. They had finally tried it. The breach came from Bright Solutions' main data server. Someone had tried to copy the analytics framework, my framework, likely under pressure from investors. Someone in leadership gave the green light to bypass me entirely. They were going to copy the system, rename it, and erase my mark. But they didn't know what I had left behind. Project Shield wasn't just a mirror system. It was a self-protecting entity, coded with tripwires, access logs, and consequences. One specific script, labeled harmlessly as shieldfinalsync.sh, wasn't a sync command at all. It was the detonation. The moment they ran it, Shield activated its final protocol. Every instance of unauthorized access, every login attempt from hidden credentials, every clause they had violated from the contract, including the overlooked clause 17B, was gathered into an encrypted report. Then, with perfect calm, Shield sent the package to 3 destinations: the Financial Watchdog's Whistleblower Division, Oceanic's Legal Department, and a senior tech editor at Future Insights. No password, no warning, just truth. By 11:45, my phone vibrated. A text from a former engineering colleague, short and shaky. Oceanic just walked. They're ending the deal. The board is falling apart. I stared at the screen. I should have felt a rush of adrenaline, maybe triumph, but instead, I felt peace. This was never revenge. It was release. At 1:20, Oceanic posted an official statement. Due to confirmed licensing violations and integrity concerns, Oceanic Corp is withdrawing from all current agreements with Bright Solutions. The news hit markets like a hammer. By 3:30, Bright Solutions stock had dropped 39%. By 4, internal emails began leaking. Chat threads, legal notes, even Mr. Stone's partial resignation draft. He had signed it, but he hadn't sent it yet. They thought they'd erase me. Instead, they erased themselves. In a single afternoon, the system they tried to claim shattered beneath them, not because I sabotaged it, but because they never owned it in the first place. They just didn't bother to read the small print. I opened the Shield interface once more. All green, system stable. The last log read, execution complete. This was never yours. I closed the laptop, took a long breath, and for the first time in years, it felt like oxygen. They had underestimated me from the beginning, called me too technical, not a good fit for the culture, good under pressure, but not leadership material. They handed me glass trophies while sharpening the knife behind their back, so I let them, and when they struck, I was ready. What Bright Solutions didn't understand, what they still wouldn't, was that real power never begs for credit. It doesn't shout in meetings. It doesn't need to be liked. It just moves silently, strategically. And when the time is right, it detonates. When the dust settled, what remained wasn't silence, it was clarity. 3 days after Bright Solutions collapsed under the weight of its own deceit, the industry woke up to a different kind of headline. This time, it wasn't about lawsuits or stock crashes, it was about a new player. Innovate Labs launches breakthrough analytics platform developed by Alice M. There it was, my name, on the front page of Tech Pulse Weekly, quoted across social media feeds by executives who had once ignored my emails. No more vague labels like solution architect or behind-the-scenes visionary. No more anonymity while others stood on my code. It was public, it was permanent, it was mine. Innovate Labs didn't just use the system. I rebuilt it from the ground up with them. In just 6 weeks, we launched the updated Shield Core Suite under the name Athena Insight. Faster, smarter, freer. We deployed with 2 new clients in energy, 1 in logistics, and we were already talking with a government agency. No more backroom politics, no more whispers campaigns, just honest work, bold code, and a team that believed in what we were building. They didn't ask for permission to put my name on it. They just said, "You earned this." And for the first time in my career, I agreed. Late that same day, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, voicemail only. Miss Fields. Her voice trembled beneath the surface, still coated with that signature polish, but now warped by desperation. Alice, I know a lot's happened. I think we owe it to ourselves to talk privately, just us. There are things you don't understand. I listened to it once, then again, and then I typed a message. Simple, deliberate, honest. I taught you loyalty. You taught me war. No send button, no anger. Just saved it in my notes. A reminder of how far I'd come. Because I didn't need her apology. I didn't need Mr. Stone's resignation either, which hit the news a week later, or the letter the Bright Solutions board sent to employees, calling for healing and cultural renewal. That wasn't my war anymore. I had already walked away from the battlefield, and on the other side, I'd built something better. People still ask if I'm angry, if I wanted more destruction, but the truth is, I didn't want destruction. I wanted dignity, ownership, recognition for the value I brought, not just in numbers, but in vision. And now I have it. I work with people who know the difference between contribution and control, who don't fear smart women with sharper strategies, who don't see talent as a threat. And every time I bring in a new partner, I tell them what I wish someone had told me. Your name belongs on the system you build. Protect it, stand behind it, and never let anyone trade it for convenience. Bright Solutions taught me many things, but Innovate Labs let me become who I was always meant to be. This wasn't a comeback. It was a declaration. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is walking away and building your own empire. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or erased, know that you're not alone. Drop a comment below, share your story, and don't forget to subscribe. We're building something powerful here, one truth at a time, and your voice matters.